10 years from now, you're going to arrive. The question is where. You see, that's the thing most people don't want to face. A decade is going to pass whether you make these decisions or not. Time doesn't care about your intentions. It doesn't slow down for confusion or speed up for ambition. It just moves, steady and relentless. And when those 10 years are up, you'll be standing somewhere looking back at today. And here's what I want you to think about right now, this very moment. Will you look back with satisfaction or regret? Will you say, I'm so glad I made that choice? Or will you say, I wish I had? Because the difference between those two statements, that's not luck. That's not circumstances. That's decisions. Let me tell you something I learned the hard way. I used to think that my life was happening to me. I thought I was a leaf in the wind, just blown around by forces I couldn't control. The economy, my background, my education, where I was born, who my parents were. I had a whole list of reasons why things were the way they were. And you know what? Every single reason made perfect sense. They were logical. They were even true. But here's what I finally figured out at age 25 when I was broke and embarrassed. Reasons don't change anything. Excuses, no matter how valid, don't add 1 penny to your bank account. Blame doesn't make you better. The moment I understood that decisions, not conditions, determine your life, everything shifted. Not overnight, but it shifted. And now I'm asking you to consider the same possibility. What if everything you want in the next 10 years isn't out there somewhere waiting to be found? What if it's right here waiting to be decided? Here's the fascinating part about decisions that most people miss. We think decisions are these big, dramatic moments. You know, the marriage proposal, the job offer, the move across the country. And sure, those are decisions. But the decisions I'm talking about, the ones that will absolutely shape your next decade, they're quieter than that. They're not what you do once. They're what you become. See, most people think they're making decisions, but really they're just expressing preferences. I'd like to be wealthy. I'd like to be healthy. I'd like to have better relationships. Those aren't decisions. Those are wishes. A real decision is when you cut off every other possibility. The word decide comes from the Latin word meaning to cut off. When you truly decide, you burn the bridges. You eliminate the backup plans. You point yourself in one direction and you say, this is who I'm becoming, and nothing is going to stop me. I meet people all the time who tell me they want their life to change. They want the next 10 years to be different from the last 10. And I always ask them the same question. What have you decided? Not what do you want? Not what are you hoping for? What have you decided? And most of the time I get a blank stare because they haven't decided anything. They're waiting for the right time, the right opportunity, the right feeling. Let me tell you something about waiting. Waiting is not a strategy. Waiting is what people do when they haven't decided. And while you're waiting, life is moving. 10 years pass, then 20. Then you wake up one day and you're 65 years old and you're still waiting for your life to start. Don't let that be you. Today, right now, you have the power to make 7 decisions that will absolutely positively change where you'll be standing 10 years from now. Now, the first decision, and this is the foundation for everything else, is this. You must decide to take full responsibility for your life. All of it. Not 50%, not 90%, 100%. And when I say this in seminars, I can see people shift in their seats because this decision makes people uncomfortable. It should. Taking full responsibility means you can no longer blame your parents, your boss, your spouse, the government, the economy, or the weather. It means you look at your life, all of it, the good and the bad, and you say, I am responsible for this. And if I'm responsible for creating it, then I'm capable of changing it. You know, I remember the day this really hit me. I was 25 years old and I was broke. Not poor, broke. There's a difference. Poor is when you don't have much. Broke is when you're earning but you're not keeping. I was working hard, really hard, but at the end of every month I had more month than money. And I was full of explanations. The prices were too high. The taxes were too much. My job didn't pay enough. I had bills nobody told me about. I had all these reasons, and every single one of them was somebody else's fault. Then I met a man who asked me a question that changed my life. He said, Jim, how long are you going to keep blaming everyone else for your life? I started to explain, and he stopped me. He said, let me tell you, the day your life will change. Your life will change when you take full responsibility for it. Not partial responsibility, full responsibility. That conversation wrecked me in the best possible way, because I realized he was right. As long as I was blaming, I was stuck. Blame is like a chain. It locks you to your circumstances. The moment I stopped blaming and started claiming my life, everything began to shift. And I mean everything. My income started to grow. My relationships improved. My health got better. See, when you take responsibility, you take back your power. When you blame, you give your power away. You're basically saying, my life is in someone else's hands. But when you take responsibility, you're saying, I may not control everything that happens to me, but I absolutely control what I do about it. Let me give you a practical example. Two farmers, same town, same weather, same economy. One of them complains constantly. It's too hot, it's too dry, it's too wet, it's too cold. Every season, he's got a reason why his crops aren't doing well. The other farmer deals with the same weather, the same conditions, but he studies, he learns, he adapts. When it's dry, he figures out irrigation. When it's wet, he figures out drainage. He takes the same circumstances and he uses his mind, his creativity, his responsibility to produce a different result. 20 years later, one farmer is still complaining and still struggling. The other farmer is prosperous, same weather, different decisions, different philosophy, different results. That's what taking full responsibility looks like. It means when something goes wrong, your first question isn't, who did this to me? Your first question is, what can I learn from this? What can I do about this? How can I grow from this? It means you stop waiting for someone to rescue you and you become your own rescue. It means you stop looking for permission and you give yourself permission. It means you understand that if your life is going to be better 10 years from now, it's because you decided to make it better and then you followed through on that decision every single day. Now, here's what happens when you make this first decision. At first, it feels heavy. You think, oh no, you mean everything is my fault. But that's not what responsibility means. Responsibility doesn't mean everything is your fault. It means everything is your opportunity. When you blame, you're powerless. When you take responsibility, you're powerful. See, the person who takes responsibility says, I may not have caused this situation, but I can respond to it. I can do something about it. I'm not a victim. I'm a participant. And that shift, that mental shift from victim to participant, that's worth more than a college degree. That's worth more than an inheritance. Because once you own your life, really own it, you can change it. So decision number one, take full responsibility. Write it down. Say it out loud. Make it real. Because if you don't get this one right, the other 6 won't matter. This is the foundation. This is where transformation begins. This is where you stop being a leaf in the wind and you start being the wind itself. The second decision that will shape your next 10 years is this. Decide to become a serious student, not a casual dabbler, not someone who reads a book once in a while when they feel like it. A serious student. Let me tell you the difference. Most people are what I call casual learners. They learn when it's convenient. They learn when it's easy. They learn when someone makes them. But serious students, they're different. They're hungry. They're intentional. They pursue knowledge the way a starving person pursues food. And here's what I've learned in all my years. Formal education will make you a living, but self-education will make you a fortune. Now, don't misunderstand me. I'm not against formal education. If you can go to college, go. If you can get a degree, get it. But don't stop there. Don't think that graduation is the end of learning. Graduation is the beginning. The real education, the education that changes your life and multiplies your income and transforms your character, that education happens when you decide to become a lifetime student. When you decide that every day, you're going to learn something new. Every week, you're going to study something valuable. Every month, you're going to invest in your mind. That decision, made once and lived daily, will absolutely separate you from 95% of the population 10 years from now. Here's what changed my life. When I was 25 and I met my mentor, he asked me a question. Jim, when was the last time you read a book? I had to think about it. High school, maybe? He said, that's your problem right there. You're trying to succeed in the world with a high school education and a high school philosophy. The world has changed. You haven't. Then he said something I'll never forget. If you want the next 5 years to be different from the last 5 years, you've got to do something different. And the fastest way to change your life is to change what goes into your mind. He handed me a book, not a novel, not entertainment, a book on personal development. He said, read this in the next week, then come back and tell me what you learned. That book led to another book. That book led to another. And over the next several years, I read hundreds of books. And you know what happened? My income didn't just double. It multiplied by 10, then by 100. Not because the books had magic in them, because the books had ideas in them. And those ideas, when I applied them, changed everything. So what should you study? Let me give you 4 categories. First, study skills. Whatever you do for a living, become excellent at it. If you're in sales, study sales. If you're in management, study leadership. If you're starting a business, study entrepreneurship. Don't just do your job. Study your job. Learn the principles. Master the techniques. Become so good that people can't ignore you. Second, study philosophy. And by philosophy, I don't mean ancient Greek texts, though you could read those too. I mean the ideas that shape how you think. Study success principles. Study economics, study psychology, study why people do what they do and how successful people think differently. Third, study people. Watch successful people. Watch struggling people. Notice the patterns. What do wealthy people do that poor people don't? What do healthy people do that sick people don't? What do happy people do that miserable people don't? The patterns are there if you look. Fourth, study yourself. Keep a journal. Track your results. What's working? What's not? Where are you growing? Where are you stuck? Self-awareness is one of the most valuable forms of knowledge. Now, let me tell you about serious study versus casual learning. A casual learner reads a book and says, that was nice. A serious student reads a book and says, what am I going to do with this? A casual learner goes to a seminar and gets inspired for a weekend. A serious student goes to a seminar and implements for a lifetime. The difference is application. You see, information without application is just entertainment. But information with application, that's transformation. So when you decide to become a serious student, you're not just deciding to learn more. You're deciding to become more. You're deciding that for the next 10 years, you're going to be constantly growing, constantly improving, constantly evolving. And if you do that, if you really commit to it, you'll be unrecognizable 10 years from now. Not just in your bank account, though that will change too. In your thinking, in your confidence, in your capability. You'll become the kind of person who can handle bigger challenges, create bigger value, and receive bigger rewards. I remember going to the library when I was starting this journey. I couldn't afford to buy books, so I borrowed them, but I treated those books like treasure. I underlined, I took notes. I read the important parts twice, sometimes 3 times. I didn't just read the words. I studied the ideas. I asked myself, how can I use this? Where can I apply this? What would happen if I actually did this? And you know what? That habit, formed over 40 years ago, is still with me today. I'm still a student. I'm still learning. And I'll be a student until the day I die. Because the day you stop learning is the day you start dying. Not physically, but mentally, spiritually. The mind is like a muscle. You either use it or lose it. So here's your assignment for decision number 2. Set up your personal development plan for the next 10 years. How many books will you read this year? 1 a month? That's 12. Books, that's 12 more ideas than you had before. How many seminars will you attend? How many courses will you take? How many mentors will you learn from? Write it down, make it specific. Because here's the truth, you don't get better by accident. You get better on purpose. And if you purpose to become a serious student for the next 10 years, You will be shocked, absolutely shocked at who you become by the end of that decade. The job opportunities that will find you, the income levels you'll reach, the problems you'll be able to solve. All because you really decided to invest in your mind. And let me tell you something else. The money you spend on your education is the best investment you'll ever make. You can lose your money. Someone can steal your property. The economy can crash. But nobody can take away what you've learned. Nobody can repossess your knowledge. Nobody can foreclose on your skills. That's yours forever. So invest in yourself. Become a serious student. That's decision number 2. Now let's talk about decision number 3. And this one's critical because it affects everything else. You must decide to master your economics. And when I say economics, I'm not talking about getting a degree in economics. I'm talking about mastering the simple principles that govern money. Because here's what's shocking. 70% of people live paycheck to paycheck. They make money and it disappears. They work hard, but they're always broke. And the reason isn't because they don't make enough. The reason is they never learned how to manage what they make. Let me give you a formula that changed my life and can change yours. It's simple, but simple doesn't mean easy. Here it is. After taxes, live on 70% of your income. That's it, 70%. Now, before you say that's impossible, let me finish. Take the remaining 30% and divide it 3 ways. 10% goes to charity, to giving, to causes you believe in. Another 10% goes to capital investments, building assets, things that can make you money. And the final 10% goes to savings, your security fund, your cushion. 70, 10, 10, 10. That's the formula. Now I know what you're thinking. Jim, I can barely live on 100%. How am I supposed to live on 70? Here's the answer. You'll figure it out. You know why? Because you have to. See, most people expand their lifestyle to match their income. They get a raise, and immediately they need more. Bigger house, newer car, fancier restaurants. That's not wealth. That's just expensive living. Real wealth is when you learn to live below your means so you can invest the difference. And over 10 years, that difference compounds, it multiplies, it grows into something substantial. Here's what I learned when I was broke. Being broke taught me more about money than being wealthy ever could. When I finally decided to master my economics, I had to make tough choices. I had to say no to things I wanted so I could say yes to things I needed. I had to distinguish between looking successful and being successful. And let me tell you, there's a huge difference. Looking successful costs money. Being successful makes money. So which one are you after? Because you can't have both, not at first. You've got to choose. You see, I had to learn to separate wants from needs. I wanted to impress people. I needed to build a foundation. I wanted to look like I had money. I needed to actually have money. And once I made that distinction, once I really got it, my financial life turned around. I started asking myself before every purchase, is this moving me toward my goals or away from them? That simple question saved me thousands of dollars, and those thousands invested properly over the years turned into millions. Now here's something else about mastering your economics. Profit is better than wages. Let me explain what I mean. Most people work for wages. They trade their time for money. And there's nothing wrong with that. You've got to start somewhere. But if you want real wealth, if you want financial independence, you've got to start thinking like an entrepreneur. You've got to start creating value that isn't directly tied to your hours. You've got to build assets, write a book, create a course, start a side business, invest in real estate, buy stocks. Do something, anything, that puts your money to work so you're not the only one working. I remember when this really hit me. I was working hard, really hard, trading my time for dollars. And then I realized something. There's a limit to how many hours I can work. There's a limit to how much energy I have. But there's no limit to how much my ideas can earn. There's no limit to how much my investments can grow. That's when everything shifted. I stopped thinking like an employee and started thinking like an owner. I stopped asking how much will they pay me and started asking how much value can I create. And when you make that shift, when you really make it, your income potential becomes unlimited. Here's what most people don't understand about money. Money is not the root of all evil. The love of money, that obsession, that's where problems start. But money itself, money is nothing more than a tool. It's a measure of the value you've created in the marketplace. If you're not making enough money, it's not because money is scarce. It's because you haven't created enough value yet. So instead of resenting wealthy people, study them. What value are they creating? What problems are they solving? What can you learn from their approach? Because here's the truth. You can have more than you've got because you can become more than you are. That's the secret. You don't get wealth. You attract wealth by becoming the kind of person who attracts wealth. Now let me talk about building multiple streams of income. This is critical for the next 10 years. You cannot rely on one source of income anymore. You just can't. The world is changing too fast. Industries are disappearing overnight. Companies are downsizing. Technology is replacing jobs. If you have only one stream of income, you're one decision away from disaster. One layoff, one business failure, one economic downturn, and you're in trouble. But if you have 3, 4, 5 streams of income, you're secure. One stream dries up, you've still got others flowing. That's not paranoia, that's wisdom. So over the next 10 years, what streams can you build? Maybe you keep your job, but you start a side business. Maybe you invest in dividend-paying stocks. Maybe you buy a rental property. Maybe you create digital products that sell while you sleep. Maybe you become a consultant in your field. There are dozens of possibilities. The key is to start now and build systematically. You don't have to create 5 income streams this year, but you could create one, and next year another, and the year after that another. 10 years from now, you could have a financial fortress instead of a house of cards. And let me tell you something about living below your means. This isn't about being cheap. This isn't about denying yourself everything good in life. This is about being strategic. This is about delaying gratification so you can have real freedom later. See, most people want to live like they're rich before they are rich. They want the house, the car, the vacations, the lifestyle, and they finance it all. They borrow their way into looking successful. But here's what happens. They become slaves to their payments. They can't take risks because they've got bills. They can't pursue opportunities because they're trapped. They're prisoners of their own lifestyle. But when you live below your means, when you keep your expenses low and your savings high, you have options. You have freedom. You can say no to a bad job. You can say yes to a great opportunity. You can take a chance on yourself. You can weather a storm. You can invest when everyone else is panicking. That's real wealth. Not the stuff you own, the freedom you have, the choices you can make, the peace of mind you feel. That's what mastering your economics gives you over 10 years. Now let me tell you about a principle that served me well for decades. It's the ant philosophy. You ever watch ants? They're always preparing. In the summer, when food is abundant, they're gathering and storing. They're not thinking about today, they're thinking about winter. They know winter is coming, so they prepare. And when winter comes, they're ready, they survive, they thrive. Now contrast that with the grasshopper. The grasshopper plays all summer. He sings, he dances, he enjoys himself. Then winter comes and he's in trouble, he's cold, he's hungry, he's unprepared. Don't be a grasshopper, be an ant. Prepare for winter while it's summer. Save when you're earning. Build when times are good so you can survive when times are tough. Here's what changed for me when I understood this principle. I stopped living season to season and started thinking decade to decade. I stopped spending everything I made and started investing in my future. I stopped asking, can I afford this? And started asking, will this help me 10 years from now? That shift in thinking, that long-term perspective, that's what creates real wealth. Because wealth isn't about how much you make, it's about how much you keep and how well you multiply it over time. So decision number 3 is master your economics. Learn the principles. Apply the formulas, build the streams, live below your means, prepare for winter. Do this consistently for 10 years, and your financial life will be completely transformed. I promise you that. Not because I'm making a guarantee, but because the principles work. They've worked for thousands of years, and they'll work for you if you work them. Now let's talk about decision number 4. And this one might be the most valuable of all. You must decide to guard your time like gold. Because here's the truth. Time is more valuable than money. You can always make more money. You cannot make more time. When an hour is gone, it's gone forever. When a day is wasted, you can never get it back. Time is the one resource that's absolutely limited, absolutely precious, and absolutely equal. Rich or poor, smart or simple, we all get 24 hours a day. The difference is how we use them. Let me ask you something. How do you spend your mornings? Because how you start your day determines how you live your day, and how you live your days determines how you live your life. Successful people have morning rituals. They don't wake up and immediately check their phone. They don't stumble into the day reactively. They start intentionally. Maybe they read. Maybe they exercise. Maybe they meditate or pray. Maybe they plan their day. But they start with purpose. They take control of their morning instead of letting their morning control them. And that one decision, that one habit compounds over 10 years into an entirely different life. I'll tell you what I learned about mornings. The first hour of the day sets the tone for everything else. If you start rushed, you'll be rushed all day. If you start distracted, you'll be distracted all day. If you start intentional, you'll be intentional all day. So I made a decision years ago. The first hour belongs to me, not to phone calls, not to emails, not to emergencies, to me, to my growth, my health, my mind, my spirit. And that decision changed everything. Because when you own your morning, you own your day, and when you own your days, you own your life. Now here's something most people struggle with. They don't know how to say no. They say yes to everything and everyone, and then they wonder why they never have time for what matters. Let me tell you something that took me years to learn. You have to say no to good things so you can say yes to great things. There are a million good opportunities out there, good books to read, good shows to watch, good people to spend time with, good activities to do. But if you say yes to everything good, you'll have no time left for what's great. You'll be busy but not productive, active but not effective, moving but not progressing. So you've got to be ruthless with your time. You've got to protect it. You've got to ask yourself, is this the best use of my time right now? Is this moving me toward my goals? Is this making me better? And if the answer is no, you got to have the courage to say no, even to good things, especially to good things, because good is the enemy of great. And most people never become great because they're too busy being good. Let me talk about the big-time thieves. Television is one. Social media is another. Now, I'm not saying never watch television. I'm not saying never use social media. I'm saying be conscious, be intentional. Because here's what happens. You sit down to watch one show and 3 hours disappear. You check your phone for 1 minute and 30 minutes vanish. And you think, well, it's just one night, it's just a few minutes, but it's not. Over a week, those hours add up. Over a month, they multiply. Over a year, you've given away hundreds of hours. Over 10 years, you've given away thousands of hours. Think about that. Thousands of hours. What could you build with thousands of hours? What could you learn? What could you create? What could you become? I knew 2 people once, similar backgrounds, similar jobs, similar starting points. One of them went home every night and watched television for 3 or 4 hours. The other went home and read, studied, worked on side projects, built skills. After 1 year, small difference. After 5 years, big difference. After 10 years, they were living in completely different worlds. One was still working the same job, still struggling, still complaining. The other had transformed his life. New career, Higher income, more opportunities, more confidence. Same 24 hours, different choices, different results. So here's what I want you to think about. Look at your calendar. Look at how you spent last week. Be honest. How much time was wasted? How much time was spent on things that don't matter? How much time was given to activities that don't move you forward? And then ask yourself, if I keep spending my time this way for the next 10 years, where will I end up? Because that's not a theoretical question. That's a real question with a real answer. If you keep doing what you're doing, you'll keep getting what you're getting. Time doesn't change that. Only you can change that. Now, let me tell you about focused hours. There's a concept called the 10,000-hour rule. It says that to master anything, you need about 10,000 hours of focused practice. 10,000 hours sounds like a lot, doesn't it? But let's break it down. If you focused on something for 3 hours a day, that's about 9 years to mastery. 3 hours a day. Most people waste 3 hours a day easy. But what if you invested those 3 hours instead? What if for the next 10 years you spent 3 focused hours every single day on developing a skill, building a business, creating something valuable? You wouldn't just be good, you'd be a master. You'd be in the top 1% of your field, all because you decided to guard your time and invest it wisely. So decision number 4 is this: guard your time like gold. Start your day intentionally. Say no to good things so you can say yes to great things. Cut out the time thieves. Invest your hours in activities that compound. Read instead of scroll. Create instead of consume. Build instead of waste. Do this consistently for 10 years and you'll be amazed at what you accomplish. Because time, when used wisely, is the most powerful tool you have. But when wasted, it's the biggest regret you'll carry.